All right, Steve Rother, thanks for joining us in Grimerica. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Good to meet you guys. It's
Yeah,
good to be with you.
yeah, this will be fun. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
I was watching a show with you on it about the group channeling the group, and I thought about some of these older. Was it the early 1900s? Maybe there was the Nine. There was a couple people channeling these other groups of people, and I wondered, like, is there any chance that you're channeling? Like, is this a group that's been through different generations of channelers, or has there been any information about that you're like the latest of a long line of channelees or something like that?
That is entirely possible. That is entirely possible. They have told me from the beginning that I'm not the only one that channels the group. There is going to be other people that bring through other things or certain concepts and so forth that won't fit into my brain the way that I've formed it. So they bring it
Okay.
through other people. So basically, it's not an expert at everything, but the group has been. Now, you bring up an interesting subject because the one person that I did read, I used to be a general contractor, so I grew up in a totally different area. But the one thing that kind of broke me down and opened my mind and heart to different things was reading Ruth Montgomery. And Ruth Montgomery channeled Art, Lily, and the group. And I never put that together before, but that was something I came to the realization of probably a couple of years ago, that she was actually channeling a group of entities as well.
And when was that? When was she channeling?
She was channeling in the 96 areas,
Okay.
96, 70. She wrote some incredible series of books about walk-ins. She was the one that actually coined the term walk-ins and how that worked in Strangers on Earth and so forth to be able to talk about that.
Okay.
So, yeah. So anyway, I'm sure that there are other people that channel the group. They have been with me for several lifetimes, apparently, from what they tell me. They call it. I gave them the name the group by default. I asked them who they were. I wanted some information. I wanted some identification, and they told me they did not wish to give it. They said humans give way too much power to the labels. Yeah. And so forth. They want us to judge the information by the love content of the information and not by the labels. So they never did tell me who they were. I called them the group.
And
I was the one that
do you know how many there were at all?
Yeah, I knew there was multiples. I could almost see them, but every time I tried to count them, it was like they'd go into another room, and I didn't know if I was, it was really confusing. There are 9 of them.
Oh, there are 9. Wow.
Which is exactly what you're talking. Well, and I think the Elohim used to be 8. So they basically say there's 9 in the group. There's 8 of them and 1 of me. So wow, I'm very fortunate to be included in that conversation. I
guess. And this has been like were you saying 30 years, coming up 30 years now?
That's correct.
Wow.
30 years I've been channeling. 30 years I've been channeling the group professionally. Before that, I was bringing in things, just awakening and doing things. The internet was brand new back in 1995. And it was all new. We had a chat room with some metaphysical people that were learning to channel. I was one of them. And we all kind of broke up. We were all kind of teaching ourselves how to channel by sharing information from books and so forth. And today, 3 of those people are professional channels still. I'm one of them. Been very blessed. Absolutely. Unbelievable stories about doors that just magically opened and things that took place. My first books were translated into 18 languages. So that opened the door for us to travel. Our publishers wanted us to come to their country and do seminars and do different things. So Barb and I traveled, my wife and I traveled all over the world for 15 years.
Wow.
One country every month.
So
it was amazing.
How did you meet them?
How did I meet the group?
Yeah.
I was dragged along to something. I was not into metaphysics at all. I'm a card carrying drag along is what we call it. But basically my wife was into metaphysics. And we were looking for something to do on New Year's Eve, 1995. I don't drink, so that always puts a kink in what you do for New Year's Eve because it's usually about drinking. So she said, my group is getting together. Why don't you come and be a part of my group? And I'm going, why? I don't know these people. Do we have to wear special clothes? I didn't know anything about it. And I just said, okay, I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna support you. I'm going to go to this group and I'm just going to smile a lot and nod. And that's what, that's what I did that night. So we went through a whole experience of recounting the year, things we wanted to keep in the year, things we wanted to release. At the end of the seminar, we all hugged and kissed. It was midnight. We met back on the beach in San Diego. There was one place where you can actually watch the sunrise on the beach down in Coronado Beach. And we were there as the sun was rising. We built a big bonfire. There's probably only about 10 or 12 of us at that point. We were supposed to hold this smudge stick up to the rising sun and read what we had planned for the next year, and then throw away the old stuff in the fire. So the leader gets up there and he holds the stick up and he starts to read his stuff. He says, wait a minute. He says, I'm being told that Steve needs to go first. And I'm over here hiding in the smoke, right? So there's always one area where the smoke is. So I'm hiding over, and he pulls me over. And I say, okay, I can, a couple minutes, I'll be done with this. I hold this thing up, I hold my paper up, and I can't read a thing. My eyes started blurring, my tears started flowing down my face. I became aware that my face was, my shirt was getting wet. The people around the fire were all holding their hands up to me to send me energy. I didn't know that at the time. I was fairly ignorant about these things, but they were really trying to comfort me and send me energy. And that's when the group, it came into me. From that moment on, still have a hard time talking about it. From that moment on, my life changed. Everything changed in my life. Very shortly after that, I closed my business. When you're a contractor, you bid jobs and you get a certain amount and then you don't. I kept missing them and missing them and missing them and missing them. It was pretty obvious we were just going to close the business. And I think that was guided. And I started writing. I started writing on the internet in a chat room. And people really liked what it was going. And I started calling it the group because it was obvious it wasn't me. And that's turned into a book that turned into monthly channels that I have continued for 30 years. They've been published in the Sedona Journal for 21 years already. It's been an interesting journey for me. And I've been invited to speak at the United Nations 5 different times. It's been just a joy, just a joy.
Can you take us through first contact?
Sure. First contact was simple. It was that night. It was the tears. It was the connection with them and knowing that there was this group of, I called them angels at the time, and they've since said that they're actually from the angelic realm. But again, they don't want us to worry about names. But at that point, I knew something had changed in my life. Now, we just went home after that. We went to bed. We thought everything was the same. But very shortly after that, I started really getting involved with bringing this information down and writing information that people could use to better their lives. I was a contractor. I built stores and commercial buildings. I was not into psychology. And yet my whole focus of my life changed very quickly. And all this information started coming out. Eventually we wrote Spiritual Psychology, which was one of my most famous books. And we've just re-released it. About the 12 primary life lessons, a way for you to look at your own life and to kind of categorize some things from the perspective of the group. And that's what they love to do. They love to give us, not to tell us what's right or wrong or which way to turn, but to give us different options, give us different perspectives. So
You're
that's
muted,
kind of,
now.
I'm sorry?
How did you learn to trust the channeling? Like, you hear a lot of stuff about, you be careful making contact because you don't know who you're making contact with and all that stuff. So how did you go through that process?
I had a very good teacher. I had a really good teacher one time who basically helped me with that quite a bit. It was an interesting thing. She happened to be with me at one of the early channels that I was doing when we were starting to gain some notoriety. There was probably 30 people in the room. That was a big opportunity for me in the beginning. 30 people was a big deal. So anyway, she's with me and somebody comes up to me and says, I foresee the future and I see that you're going to get very famous And I also see that you're going to be attacked. So I want to give you a piece of stone that you can carry with you, and it can ward off all the attacks. And I said, cool. It was a piece of hematite, really heavy, metal kind of rock. So I really loved it. I put it in my pocket. My friend, my teacher, said, lose that rock as fast as you can. And I go, I don't understand. I really like the rock. It's supposed to help ward off this. She says, you don't understand. You're a conscious creator. If you're taking something to actually ward off energy, you're going to draw that energy to you. Plain and simple. And it made perfect sense. So working with her and being able to listen to the messages from the group and the way that they word things, because they're not interested in taking people's power. The whole word Espavo, which is the name of our organization, is a story that they told about Lemuria and some of the energies around that. It used to be a greeting like hello and goodbye and aloha and things of that nature. And it simply meant thank you for taking your power. That's their whole process, is to try and give us stuff to empower us. Now, yes, I had my questions. I wanted to know who they were. My friends in this chat room are channeling Vaiwamas from the 23rd century. I had no clue who these people were, what dimensions they were. So I asked the group, and they basically said, we're not going to give you names because we want you to judge it from the love content instead of the rest. So I called them the group, and people resonated with that. They very quickly got over who are they, where are they from, because they felt the connection. And I think that was the most important part. And that's what I did. At one point early on, I asked them a question, because you have clairvoyance, you have clairaudience, you have clairsentience, and you have people like me who are claircognizant. All of a sudden, I know something. That's what it is. It's almost like they drop it in back here. They don't even tell me it's coming sometimes, but they drop it in back here, and all of a sudden I know something. Well, that's very hard to validate sometimes. You can't go back to a vision that you had or words that you were hearing or something of that nature. So it's a little challenging sometimes to be able to validate it. And I asked them in the beginning, I said, am I making this up? It feels to me like I'm making this up. They said, yes, you are. Please continue. Yeah. Well, what they were saying is, again, as long as you're bringing something through, and my wife she was the perfect one, because she was my greatest critic. And she became very aware that I was bringing through information that I did not have. It was well beyond me. So she got on board very quickly. She considered herself to be a recovering Catholic. So when her husband, who was a contractor, started channeling, all of a sudden, it was a little spooky for her too. She got a little freaked out.
Did any of the lessons change in the newer releases? Like, did you redo any of the lessons at all, or?
There's one particular lesson that's at the very end. It's grace. It's the final lesson. We described it in such a way that basically said very few people on planet Earth are dealing with grace, because it's such a difficult, challenging life lesson. Now, everybody is dealing with grace. That's one of the aspects that almost everybody can look at in some way. So we left the book the same so that it would read the same, but we put some extra words in to explain what was happening now and the different energies around that. Because there are times when entire societies go through a life lesson. We've been going through a life lesson of truth. I mean, look at the internet. You're dealing with it here yourself. You're a source of truth because we need them.
Yeah.
We have the reality is that with our internet, with our and I'm big in technology, so I love this stuff. But the reality is that lies and different scary things will travel 7 times farther and faster on the internet than the truth does. So it makes it a little difficult sometimes to even do the work that you guys are doing and try to offer different things. You have to package it in certain ways to get it through. But I've been watching your site. Great job. Great job.
Darren, do you want to talk about the lessons, or do you want to get into some of the lessons?
Before we get into that, I was just wondering what that transition was like. I mean, it's got to be weird. You're closing down the company. You don't know where the money's going to come from. You're writing in the
Absolutely.
chat room, but you have no idea if that this is going to turn into a book or any income at that time. So I wouldn't mind just understanding what that transition was like. Were you freaking out, or were they sort of letting you know it was going to be okay? Like, what did that feel like?
I was absolutely freaking out. My wife was not so bad. She worked, so at least she would have some income coming in during that time. So we weren't panicking. But at the same time, the majority of the income was coming from my job and from my work. We had a small contracting company. It was like 7 people. There were times where we had to lay people off because we didn't have enough work. So they knew this was kind of the business. We ended up closing it entirely. And I didn't really know what I was going to do, but I couldn't stay away from that computer. I just couldn't. I had something I had to say. And I didn't really even realize that I was channeling in the beginning. But in the beginning, you want to know about the very essence of it, the very beginning, I would sit there and I would type these things and I would try not to read them because I didn't want to take my time correcting them. And on top of that, when I read them, I would cry more. I had so many tears in the beginning. It was like I had to clear all this stuff in order to get this energy through. So that was difficult. Then taking that and turning it into live channeling in front of people, I had no clue that I would ever do that. But somebody asked me to come up to speak to their spiritual group. They were going to pay my way up there. It was a group up in Montreal, Canada. I love Montreal. I've done a lot of work in Canada. So anyway, I went up to Canada, got to spend a little time up there and showing around. And I did this seminar, small seminar, again, probably about 30 people, friends of this lady, people that work with this lady. So they were kind of her group. So I'm here talking about the group and handing out literature and stuff. They said, no, we want you to channel live. So that was the first time that I channeled live. And I was panicking. I absolutely was panicking. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know if I could do it without crying because the tears seemed to be part of the ritual. I didn't want to be embarrassed. I didn't want, I told him before, I said, when I'm talking to the group, I said, the greatest fear that I have is that I will get in front of a group of people and you won't be there. I'll announce you, I'll sit down to channel and you won't be there. And they said, we can't obviously guarantee anything, but we've been with you for lifetimes. Trust us. Let us give you this suggestion. And they said, we're going to give you some words to use. He said, you give those words, you speak those words when you sit down to channel, and we'll take over from there. The words are greetings from home. I start every channel with greetings from home. And then they come in and take over the channel. That sounds very smooth. It doesn't sound any different. But if I ever get panicked about, what are we going to say or how are we going to reach this group or, all the different crazy things that we can worry about, I just go back to that. That's all I need is greetings from home. And it works.
Does that imply that this isn't home?
It does. They call home what we would term as heaven. They basically say when we are not here, we're all connected. We're all a part of each other. And that's what they call home. Yeah.
Is that what your one of your latest books, Crossing the Veil, is about then?
That's exactly what it's about. That's exactly what it's about. What happens to us before we're born? We know we're a spirit. It's very difficult to describe the other side of the veil. We attempt it in the book, but it's very challenging because on the other side of the veil, there's no time. Well, that throws a kink in everything. You can't, if you really try to talk something about without using time references, it's crazy. It's very difficult to do. So it's very challenging to know what complete unity, where you are a part of everything and everybody is a part of you. And you have these parts of you that you love. You love to see these different parts like old friends that keep circulating around. When you come in, you make contracts. You sit around what we call the big table. You bring all your friends that you want to interact with, and you ask this person over here, we're going to be in the same school when we're grade school, when we're in junior high. Would you be my first girlfriend? Would you do that for me? And then you come over here and you say, okay, and would you be my best friend in high school? We'll be buddies and we'll do, and at a certain point, will you steal my girlfriend so that I can learn this lesson of trust? And we basically set all these contracts up, good, bad, indifferent. We're trying to complete energy. It's not about trying to accomplish something. It's not about trying to earn enough money or make things easy. It's about learning something as a spirit. And that's what the spiritual psychology is all about. Crossing the veil is about what happens to us before all that process, going through multidimensionality to get here, and how we express in multidimensional nature. And then what happens to us as we die, which is really an incredibly beautiful story. If you ever, everybody's going to experience death, whether it's their parents or friends, everybody's going to experience it. We should be teaching this stuff in grade school. We really should. Everybody's going to experience it. There's so much fear about it. There's so much miscommunication about death and so forth. If we can make a person's last breaths easier, it makes their crossing into the other world easier.
Well, it also gives life more meaning too, doesn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. That's when we ground. All the experiences we have in our life are grounded when we go home. They're all grounded. They're brought together in a very unique way, and that's really special.
So did some of the ancient wisdom traditions get this right before? Like, is this something that we've known for many thousands of years?
Over and over and over again. The group says, the Aboriginals had it. Whether you're talking about the Aboriginals and the Aborigines, whether you're talking about the Native Americans, whether you're talking about all the original tribes knew what they were doing when they were worshiping the sun, when they were working with the different parts of nature. They had much more of a connection with the earth than we do. We've moved into this age where we ended the Holocene, basically. We had this 10,000 year period of 1 degree change where we were able to evolve quite a bit, but then we ended that with the Industrial Revolution and all the different things that happened. So it happened very quickly. But all of these things are just part of where we're at right now. So anyway, a lot of excitement with all that.
So you went from that to lecturing at the UN, or channeling for the UN, I guess. I mean,
channeling.
What was that like? And do you I don't know how to ask this without, I don't want to be confrontational or anything like that, but there's a lot of conspiracies about the UN, how they're trying to bring in a one world religion, which in some ways kind of makes sense if it's, I guess, one of compassion and love and all that kind of stuff. But so I kind of get it from a new age perspective, but I don't think it's going over very well with the Christians probably and the atheists and all that. So what was that experience like? And what about these theories about UN bringing in a one world religion to the whole planet?
Well, there are ideas that have created through the UN, but please understand the UN is a huge organization. There's not one thought train in the UN. Now, having said that, I can also tell you that we were not involved directly with the United Nations. We were not asked to speak in the big room, as they say.
In their meditation room in there? You weren't?
The meditation room was too small. They have other rooms that in New York you're talking about. The one with the Chagall painting out front. Yeah. Anyway, in New York there's a meditation room, and it was much too small for what we did. We brought in about 75, 100 people. They packed the place, and I did a channel. That's all I did. But these were not people that were directing us. They didn't tell us what they wanted. What it was an organization that allowed the members of the United Nations to come and experience speakers. Some of these speakers were simply speakers like Wayne Dwyer, or people that wanted to offer you something or give you some suggestions in different ways. I believe the first channel, or not the first channel, but probably the second or third channel. I think Lee Carroll was probably the first channel with Cryon. And we got invited by the people that actually invited him in New York. In Vienna, I went 3 different times and there was no connection. They didn't know it. They read my books and they contacted us. And that was unbelievable. I'm sitting at my desk one day talking to somebody and I hang up the phone and I said, honey, we've just been asked, we were just saying if we're ever going to be in Vienna, that we can come to the United Nations there. Isn't that nice? And 20 minutes later, the phone rings and somebody asked to host us in Vienna. Nice. And we said, oh my God, this is, we have to write a book just about what's happening to us. It's unbelievable. So that's what happened. And we went there, scary. It was a small group of people the first time, I think 20, 30 people, small group of people. Like I said, there were people from the atomic energy agencies that wanted to ask specific difficult questions to the group, which they did.
Wow.
I don't know if they got the answer they were looking for. I couldn't tell you. I didn't get to speak to them afterwards. They left. But there was a group from the Atomic Energy Agency. There was a group from UNICEF. There's a group from different people that wanted to be there. There were several people that were delegates because the main delegate place had just let out. So a lot of them came over and watched the thing too. So anyway, it was kind of an extra thing. It wasn't published by the United Nations. It wasn't directed by the United Nations. We never dealt with the United Nations organization other than to go in and do these channels on that facility. It was magical.
Wow. Darren, do you got any questions? Darren?
Is there any, I'm going to kind of cross the streams here, but is there any home heaven? I mean, we get a lot of people, a lot of channelers talking about the Pleiades. Does that come into it at all?
Well, the Pleiades is actually on this side of the veil. So we have everything in, we're just going to say infinity, and then we have finiteness. Well, the Pleiades is it's a star series. So it's an entire group of stars that are just very magical, and you have beings that are channeling entities and energy from there that travel through here. The group doesn't actually say that they are traveling that distance. They actually call them EDs instead of ETs. They say they're actually extra dimensional because they know how to shift their vibration a little bit to shift dimension and be able to show up. But they are from Pleiades. There's ones from Sirius. There's over 140 different races of beings on this planet. And we only know really about the ones that walk with 2 legs and 2 arms and a head. So we know very little about it. There's a lot of information here with ETs and visitors, and what the group even calls parental races of beings that are here, many of which are working with planet Earth right now to try and correct some of those challenges in that direction. So anyway, they've talked a lot about that.
There seems to be a more of a general acceptance to this interdimensionality, and I mean, even the government's talking about portholes and
yep.
portals and the Skinwalker Ranch type stuff. I mean, all this activity that you mentioned, the walk-ins, that's now just like a phrase that the government uses. Like everybody knows what it means now.
Exactly.
And the whole ET thing. I mean, even this whole spaceship, this Atlas 3 coming. I mean, it's unbelievable how much over the last few years is now just being openly discussed.
The government used to own Skinwalker Ranch. That's exactly correct. Yeah. They actually bought it for a while. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Some of these things that are now taking place, and it's happening very quickly. If we look backwards, for all of us, it seems to be so slow. Come on, we all know this. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. Let's bring it up. But and then there's the scientific aspect of the people that want proof. They want some sort of proof that we're not going to be able to provide right away, or they want a dead body or something that hasn't been confiscated by our government. We're being kept in the dark on purpose.
Is there any sort of relation, or commentary on what the group says about or the current state of government, that if nothing else, we figured out over the last, half decade to a decade seems to be a world government already, or at least they're talking to each other?
It's moving in that direction. There's a lot of challenges that are going on right now. One of the things they actually said reflects in our government that we haven't really seen is what's taking place on a global basis, not just with us, but on a global basis. The feminine energy is rising. Excuse me, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I do apologize. The feminine energy on planet Earth is rising. As it comes up, the masculine energy is grabbing hold of everything it can grab hold of, trying to grasp everything to hold it in place, trying to control everything, trying to bring everything into control. So they move much into the force, the control of the masculine energy as the feminine's rising. It doesn't stop the feminine from rising, but we start to see all this chaos, and we start to see a lot of different things take place, including what's happening in Russia, including what's happening in Ukraine and Israel. So forth. I'm sorry?
Is this cyclical? I mean, because the other thing we see is that there's clear evidence that this isn't the first go around.
That's correct. It is cyclical. Almost everything runs in cycles, at least to some degree. We have the opportunity on those cycles to change things, to alter the energy. If we do, it shifts. It kind of fades from view. It goes out of favor, so to speak. But as long as we're dealing with it, we'll keep it in. We'll keep putting energy into these things, and they keep circulating.
Do they give any illusion as to what happened the last go around to the people that made the pyramids and all this other great stuff?
Yeah, we had a lot of help. It's real simple. It's no secret. I mean, Von Donigan had it correct. We've seen a lot of people that, we still don't know how the pyramids were built. We have all this evidence that the rocks were actually moved. We've seen the canoes. We've seen where the workers stayed. We've seen all this evidence and different things, but we've never seen anything that would suggest that this could actually be done, even in that long period of hundreds of years.
And they don't seem interested in finding out either.
They don't. The other parts are the interesting things that happen, particularly in Peru. Down in Peru, there are different walls that have been built there and they've dated them past the 12,000 years BC. So that means they're past the Younger Dryas. So we know that they were there for a very long time, but they are so tightly fit together. There is no way you could do this. That culture, that Aboriginal culture down there, the Indian culture that they have, has stories about a grand lady who used to raise these rocks up with energy, heat them up until they melted, and then she put them together. Well, that actually makes sense. Those are things that actually took place, but we don't understand it because we don't know about anti-gravity. We still haven't figured out this whole thing called dark energy. The group calls it universal energy. Science says it makes up 78% of our universe, but we know nothing about it. We can't measure it. We can't. Tesla knew it. That's the energy he was working with. This energy which is everywhere. He was bringing it in, grounding it in different ways, but he wasn't taken seriously.
Well, he is now, it seems. So
yes, it is.
Are we in the age of disclosure then? Is it happening?
It is.
No?
It is absolutely
noting that Trump's uncle stole his books.
Did he?
I don't know if he stole them, but yeah, Donald Trump's uncle was, I can't remember what his title was, but he was the dude
FBI, I think,
who ended up with Tesla's journals when they
really
were in the department. Yeah,
they were taken originally from by the FBI.
Yeah, so it might have been.
Who died.
I think he was working through the FBI, but there's this crazy connection that it was actually one of Trump's uncles that was the guy that ended up with this paper.
That makes sense. Of course, understanding it is different.
Yeah.
We still don't understand the 369. And those are, there's some very basic things. We did a whole seminar on something we called triality, which is basically Tesla's 369 energies, how he used them, what the group had to say about all that. We did a 2-day seminar on that. Very interesting, fascinating things that he knew that we still can't figure out. He even told us the secrets, and we still can't quite figure out how to use them. So we'll get there, though. We will. And as far as disclosure, You know, you've had Area 51 for a long time. They've been denying Area 50, not very far from where I'm at right now. The reality is they've been successfully denying things over and over and over again. We humans have a frailty. One of those frailties is repetition. When we hear things over and over and over and over again, we actually start to believe it. And that has worked for the government up to a point. It's not going to work much longer. There's too much energy out here. And furthermore, I don't want to speak for all the races of ETs that are here, because like I said, there's 141 of them at last count from the group. So there's a lot of different things here. But for the most part, they're here to help us. They don't want to take us over. They've got other things to do sometimes. So they want to see us succeed. They want to see us heal this earth. They want to see us in different ways. They don't always agree about how to do that, so it's kind of confusing sometimes. But there's a lot of energy that's coming through right now as a result of all these things. And I do believe that they want disclosure. And
what about some of the ones through the lore that weren't so great? Like, do they still exist? I'm thinking the Archons or Reptilians. There might have been one more in there, the Dracos or something like that. I'm not the alien guy. Graham might be able to speak to it a little better, but there seems to be a couple that have been assholes throughout.
That's correct. That's correct. That's absolutely correct. So if you talk about Syrians, if you talk about Palladians, if you talk about Arcturians, the reality is that's like talking about Earth. We have some real assholes here, but we also have a lot of good people. So we're going to have factions of different things that take place. One of the factions very early on in one of our primary parental races took us over. The group actually said those are the stories of the Garden of Eden. We weren't supposed to leave the garden. Well, thank God Eve bit the apple and didn't, because now we broke out of there. But the group actually says that was captivity by some of our earlier races that were trying things. And it was a faction. It was a small faction of one of the energies. And the reality is the rest of that planet came and helped to free us and made them leave us alone, basically. So I do believe that the general part, I mean, if these beings had the energy to be able to travel these distances, whether that's actually traveling the distances or interdimensional or whatever, they certainly have the technology to take us over. They're not doing that. They're not interested in that. They do want us to know they're here. That's why we saw things like the Phoenix lights and so forth, the things that just wouldn't go away. They tried to chase them down. They tried to scare them off, and they'll just sit there. Fascinating stuff. And I do believe that's the case. I do believe that we're seeing many of these races of beings, some of which are harsher than others. Absolutely. Reptilian is one of our parental races, actually one of our 6 parental races, according to the group, that gives us that energy, that harsh energy, that forceful energy sometimes. Hopefully we tame it down and blend it with everything else. But yeah, there's different energies from different groups. It's going to be fascinating. The next 20 years are going to be, well, the group says we're entering a time of no more secrets. Now that not only means no more secrets from our government, but I mean, passwords are going to be difficult to deal with in the future with technologies growing the way that they're going to. So it's going to be a wild time.
It kind of lines up with, no matter what side of the spectrum you're on, everyone agrees that there's some sort of awakening going on right now. You know, it's kind of hard to deny that there's crazy truths coming out that some of us have maybe thought for a while, or yep. You know, the conspiracy theorists seem to be up right now, if anyone's keeping score. I'm not. But can we start to dig into the 12 soul lessons a little bit on what?
Sure.
What it's all about?
Sure. I'll give you that. They're very basic things, actually. So they're general things: acceptance, adaptation, different aspects of working with life, truth, trust, different basic things that you work with. Probably one of the most popular ones that that your listeners will be working with is definition. And it's probably a little more popular with women than men, although men can certainly have it. Definition is when somebody comes in and they're born with very big energy and very weak boundaries. Well, what they do is they end up drawing in master manipulators. Mom, dad, somebody else is going to be a manipulator. They'll abuse them, or they'll, cover them up and control them in some way. They'll grow up, they'll marry a master manipulator, they'll work for one. They'll end up in those things until they learn how to say no with love in their heart and a smile on their face. And that is a huge life lesson that many women, as well as men, but mostly women, are working with right now on the planet, especially in what we call the light. People that are looking for this next level, that are stepping into this higher energy. Absolutely. Men, the most common lesson right at this moment is communication. We have a tendency, when things get rough with emotions, to stick our heads in the sand. That was my life lesson before I wrote the book, before they kicked me in the face with my own life lesson. But basically, that was it. It's a common life lesson amongst men to be able to speak from the heart. We tend to want to think we hear what we're saying. In other words, we think we want to put a message across and know exactly what they're hearing instead of actually speaking from our heart. And that's a huge life lesson that men are working with. There's 12 of them. You generally don't work with all 12 life lessons. You generally only work between 8 and 10 of them. And then you're done with planet Earth. There's something else waiting in somewhere. They've never talked about it. I don't know. But you basically graduate planet Earth. You become a last timer. You come here for one more go around if you so choose. You usually put a lot on your plate during that one, and you end up leaving after that point. You become very bored because things get boring. Things get easy. Yeah, basically. So that's kind of the attributes of the life lessons in general. There's a lot to that because it talks about, the different aspects of how we make these contracts, how this works. It talks, the book talks a lot about the contracts we make, the contracts that we can do, how we can revise the contracts, how we can make conscious contracts while we're here. There's a lot of different aspects to this besides just the 12 primary life lessons. It's the whole process of life. So this particular book, Spiritual Psychology, covers the birth process all the way from the last moments of death. The other book picks up the other part. The other book, Crossing the Veil, picks up what happens to you before you come in and what happens to you as you step out of the body. So it kind of, between Crossing the Veil and Spiritual Psychology, they kind of cover the whole gambit according to the group of what we do as a spirit.
Is there a getting stuck in limbo? Like some of the ancient traditions say that there's soul rescue programs, even that the Monroe Institute has. Like, is there any advice for people so that they make it through to the next level without getting stuck?
There's a lot of things you can do. First of all, is wisdom is number one, to search out ideas and search out connections. When you hear something that resonates, you hear it. And that's your guides. That's your spirit or your channel on your own shoulder. See, I believe everybody channels. I believe we call it different things. Basically I'm focused in one area, but other people focus in different areas and they get information all the time. I believe we all do that. We just call it, like I said, we have different names for it in different areas. Now, what was the question again? I'm sorry.
About getting stuck in limbo.
About getting stuck, yeah.
Yeah, the soul rescue type thing.
There are times, there are traumas that can fracture a spirit. Can basically, the way we look at that is that there's a fractured spirit. We have to put it back together. We have to heal it. We have to bring it back together. It is a trauma. It can be an energy trauma. It can be a physical trauma. It can be something we experience as PTSD. There can be a lot of things that can actually fracture that part. But the way to think about it is that you never lose it. It's always there. It's just not together. So there are processes that people can use to put themselves back together, to find those pieces and to heal that process. Right now, there's a huge amount of success with psychedelics on trauma. It is absolutely doing things that the people did expect it because they were working with it in the 60s. They were having huge success with it in the 1960s before we had a jerk president put it on the number one, the number one drug list.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, don't get me into politics. But basically, there's a lot there that are healing in the way of traumas. But that is a way of thinking of these traumas because they do tend to fracture things. It's almost as if a person starts hiding a part of themselves because they're afraid of getting hurt again, or they're afraid of experiencing that trauma. So that's the way that I perceive it, is that they have basically, you're only going to see a piece of them because they're not going to show you their whole self. And that is a fracturing of a spirit. Now, are there things that you can do? Yeah, there's talk therapy. There's energetics. There's, like I said, there's psychedelics now. There's psychedelic psychology is taking off. So I'm hoping that'll get popular again. They're starting to legalize it throughout different parts of the world, but not here yet. We'll get there.
What about getting stuck on your way to the other side of the veil?
All of that is possible, entirely possible. Before you come in here, you generally make a contract with another spirit to come and get you. We call them the greeter.
Wow.
Okay. This could be Uncle Harry that that was going to die before you did. This could be somebody that you didn't know, but you knew from a previous lifetime. It doesn't make any difference. It was somebody you trust, and they will basically appear above your bed while you're getting out of your body to help you out. So that is one of the things. Then they take you to what we call the tunnel. It's been labeled in the Bible as the valley of the shadow of death. Basically, you have to go through there yourself. Nobody can guide you through that. We can take you to the edge and share with it, but you walk through that and then you're home. And then you are integrated. It happens very fast. It's very exciting. So anyway, there's a lot to that takes place, but there is a process around those things. And these are stories that the group basically tells. They talk about the big table of making contract. There's really no table, but they give us these stories so that we can understand how these things work.
Yeah,
that's how they tell things. Yeah.
What is how does AI factor into this? What's its sort of role? Because it's going to have the same sort of thing as the internet, right? The internet sort of brought in all these new, at the time, it just seemed like, this new freedom thing, but tie that into cell phones and banking and tracking and data and everything else. And while it allowed us to have this awakening and do things that wouldn't have been possible 40 or 50 years prior, I'd be stuck on the end of a shovel someplace still.
Yeah.
I kind of view AI as the same sort of thing. It's just going to be a different tool, but I'm just sort of what does the group think of this new entity slipping in?
They're very excited about it. There is a lot of fear about it. There are some negative things about it that are going to have to be adjusted, obviously, but they're small. They're small compared to the fear that's here. It is going to change our lives the same way that the internet did, the same way that robotics did. Robotics has changed the way we do everything manufacturing. So these technological things are huge. Right now, we're on the verge of two major changes that are going to shift our lives in ways that we cannot imagine. AI is one of them. We're all very familiar with it now. But quantum computing is the other one, and it's coming fast and hard. There's, I don't know how many quantum computers on the planet now. They are getting smaller. They're actually very big, but the computer itself is tiny, but it creates so much heat. They have to do all this stuff to get it to be superconductor stuff. That is changing. They're evolving these things very quickly. But that's going to change everything. If you can imagine, just with the data that is known about you right now, public data on the internet, A quantum computer can figure out your passwords in a heartbeat, all of them. They'll even tell you what site you probably went to. The unbelievable speed, unbelievable quantum computing power is about to be released. It's very small right now because there's a very limited number of them, but eventually these will be in people's homes. That will change our lives in ways that, just like the internet did, just like the computer did.
At what point can they communicate through that to the masses? Are they already doing that to some level? Because you can see the overlords are trying to stop that, just like they did with the internet. Or they're,
yeah.
I mean, the internet, they were kind of asleep at the wheel, but the last 5 years we've seen them really ramp it up, right? It's no, you can't say that here, period.
Right.
And the AI is doing that now too, right? But you can, in some instances, flip it. Because I'll get into it where I'm like, nah, man, that's fucking wrong, and I've got 20 minutes for you right now, and I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to and it'll get to the point where it's like, yeah, you're right, that because of this and this, we don't talk about that, but to the average user, they're not going to push back on that. You know what I mean?
That's correct.
It's like
that's correct.
The third page of Google. Before they got Google to the point where they could just erase all the stuff they didn't want you to find, they just pushed that shit to page 7, page 8, page 9, and 95% of people never get past the first page. So it kind of works that way. That's
correct. No, we definitely have been absolutely controlled in different ways, attempted at controlling in different ways. In many ways, the new technologies are going to help us supersede that. They're going to help us reveal that and block it, because the technologies are not limited to our governments, to some of the other areas that they have been limited to in the past. Much of our technology, much of the technologies that's in use today started in our War Department. So, a lot of things started as a war toy, and now we end up using it as a cell phone or something. So literally we see this evolution going on in a lot of different ways, but we also start to reveal it. And that's the most important part. We have the internet. We have ways of communicating. We have levels of communication which are spreading out. Easy way to talk about it is a channel. You draw a certain amount and certain type of person that's interested in these things. Other people have different types of channels. And yet we have the capability now of collecting information from all of these channels. That's new. This was never there before. So these are incredible things that AI can actually help us with in the very beginning, collecting this data, being able to use this stuff. Being able to reflect ourselves in a different way. It's absolutely amazing. A little scary, absolutely. But nonetheless, one of my students asked ChatGTP what the group would say about XYZ. And they came back with an incredible answer, I must say. It was, and of course, what they did was they go to my site because they know the group, they know steverother.org, and they go to the site, they collect all this information, they put it back together. Absolutely scary because it's our information. We can feel it, we can feel it some way, but it is just collecting pieces. Now, thinking for themselves, becoming actual personalities, we're still quite a ways down the road from that. We really are. That is not something that's going to happen right away. They will emulate it. They'll learn your name. Do
you think it's possible to recreate God's work?
I do. In a different way. I believe we also had this same challenge in Atlantis. I believe that in Atlantis, we went in a different direction. We learned how to clone people. We learned how to raise people and bring people into our societies that we wanted to do the work that we didn't want to do. So we raised a group of beings that were told to do certain things, and we made the same mistakes that some of our parental races did. Didn't work. They evolved anyway. I do believe that will eventually take place, but I do believe we're quite a ways away from it. And I also believe it'll be in harmony.
So I have a question for you. It kind of similar to how AI is programmed to toe the narrative, like Rob is saying in the chat. So that's a interesting challenge that we have. But also, how do you discern um, propaganda from free thought on this type of thing? So let me give you an example. So
Yeah.
I had a PR company came to us. They wanted us to have a guest on that. A book that's channeling all these famous people. And when I started looking at what the book was all about, it's like all these famous people basically saying that, it's our fault and it's climate change and it's like we're causing climate change and all. It just felt like a propaganda book to me, sold based on what famous people were channeling. So how do you discern, especially stuff about climate change and all that, from the group that you're channeling?
Discernment is the key. That's the piece. It has to resonate in your own heart. You have to resonate with the message, or you're wasting your time. You literally cannot get much from that. If you did not resonate with what was being said with that, put it down. Go to something else.
Right.
The group suggests that we don't call it good or bad, because when we call something bad, we attach ourselves to it in some way. So maybe it's best to just say, that's not for me. I don't resonate with that right now.
Yeah.
And with the internet, with the explosion of our technology, with our cell phones, with WhatsApp, with all these things that are taking off, we have ways of communicating we've never had before. So propaganda is everywhere. And some of the kings of propaganda are still everywhere, still doing exactly what they've always been doing. So, yeah, we're seeing that being used over and over again.
Yeah, it must be hard even to craft your message, because you're kind of downloading this, or you're kind of getting this from the group, but some stuff has been so the definitions have been so politicized. Like, I mean,
That's
I'm not
true.
saying that humans aren't causing some sort of climate change too, but it's the way that it's all like climate change has been now, just like basically said what it means is that it's us causing it and not corporations, and not, we shouldn't be looking for asteroids that are going to smash us to bits. We should be worried about paying our government more taxes to get rid of all, it's
Right.
like, that's kind of where it's gotten. So you must have to adjust some of your message depending on the current state of propaganda, I guess.
That is true. Sometimes there are words that I use that are taken and used in different ways, and I have to start using different words. That is correct. Yeah. Steve is the translator. I'm the one that's responsible for the English language. That is correct. Yeah. So yes, I have to come up with the words, and sometimes I do have to change them. Sometimes I do have to evolve that. It's sad. It's exciting at the same time.
Right.
It's really difficult because we see people really get involved with their story. Yeah. We all live by our stories. We all have our ideas of who we are and what we're going to do every day and everything else. But when you're so wrapped up in it that you don't make room for other truths, you're really locked into something else. And we've seen a lot of that happen with this explosion of technology.
Yeah, exactly.
I do believe that humanity will adjust. I do. I think it'll take some years, but I do believe we'll adjust to it.
What kind of time frame are we talking about for what you said? An awesome phrase that they gave you. The secrets. I wrote it down here. The time of no more secrets. So, what does that look like for a time frame? Like, are we talking 5 to 10 years?
I think we're stepping into it. I think we're starting to get into that energy now. This is part of the reason that the government is having more difficulty holding the secrets of the UFOs that they've been dealing with for years and years and years. We've even had people from the government tell us all about it. Bob Lazarus. We've had people tell us exactly what's going on. And yet, since we can't actually take a visit through there and see what we're doing, I don't know what it's going to take. But we're starting to understand that it takes place. It happens. We're starting to get that information, whether we have that proof or not. And all of that is happening very quickly. As far as time frame, 2028 will be very exciting. 2030 will be even more exciting. We are starting to step into what the group calls the fifth dimension, living in a higher reality. It doesn't mean that things are going to solve. It means that we're going to step into a higher reality where much of this junk that goes on doesn't matter. It doesn't actually exist in the higher reality. It's a higher state of mind. There's a lot to that. We work with that every day, but the reality is it's here now. The group says we live so long in the third dimension, we wake up every morning and we create the third dimension inside the fifth dimension. So we're learning to anchor little bits of that, little pieces of this, little truths. A lot of the work that you're doing, a lot of the stuff that we see on your website, these are perfect little ways to get a variety of different subjects and different energies and different wisdom to come through. So in some ways, it's a very, like I said, it's a very exciting time to be here.
Yeah, totally.
Is there a force pushing back against that? Because it's like 2030 is important to the elites too, right? They're trying to get us in total carbon lockdowns, and you don't leave your neighborhood unless we say, or you got your papers and stuff like that. And they've been talking about that date for a long time too. So it seems like too much of a coincidence for those.
No, it's not a coincidence. It's happening at the same time. You're absolutely right. The money. The group was asked about the elections back in 2016 and 2015. And they said basically the next several elections are going to be in the United States, are going to be about money versus the will of the people. And that's kind of what's taken place. The money
you could argue the last like 40 elections.
That's true. That's absolutely true. And this kind of takeover that we've seen has actually been planned for about 40 years by the Heritage Foundation, different people that have been trying to do this for quite some time, get the Supreme Court in line, do all the different things that they've been able to do. And of course, the gerrymandering, all the different things that have happened now really have kind of skewed our democracy, so to speak. We'll get over it. I do think I have a very positive attitude about humans. I think we learn. I do think it takes time. I do think we beat our head against the wall a lot, but eventually I do think we'll learn how to take all this information, including all the conspiracy theories, all the propaganda, all the other stuff, just bring it in and go through it and pull out what we need rather than get stuck in all these dramas.
We're adaptable.
Yeah. What's your thought on that, just democracy in general? Because it seems like it makes a lot of sense on paper. I mean, but what it seems to have turned into more and more recently as the opposite sides get more and more polarized is majority rule. So it hasn't become this democratic thing where we're all sort of ruling ourselves. It's become basically, right versus left and fuck the rest of them.
Well, that is the challenge. It is absolutely polarized. There's no room for a third party to even emerge. So it's really, really challenging in that way. One of the things that I see personally, not from the group's perspective, but from me, is that we don't actually have a democracy. We don't, we have this crazy thing with the electoral college, and we have this crazy thing where each state just has their own election and the whole state goes towards someone. This is not a majority rule thing. It never has been.
No, but they keep calling it a democracy. Like it's a constitutional republic. They call it a democracy. And in Canada, I mean, we don't have the same protections that you guys have there, and we just have one big party that doesn't listen to the people. So
that's right. That's right. You do.
So it seems like with those systems out of the way, just this idea of, my take on it is that this democracy thing was sort of the biggest hoodwink they ever pulled on us, because we would always get upset and storm the castle eventually. When shit got bad enough, the peasants would storm the castle, and then they came up with democracy. So it's not
where they could actually not storm the castle,
right?
It's not
Tim's fault that my life sucks. It's Steve's fault, or it's Graham's fault, or it's the liberals' fault, or it's the conservatives' fault. I mean, they really managed to create this hydra with no head and turn us against each other and make us more controllable at the same time.
That's exactly right. That's exactly correct. It only works through the separation, and that has been absolutely a huge piece of it. We've separated so much that, one of the things you don't do here in the United States, we have Thanksgiving. You do not talk politics at Thanksgiving. You don't talk politics with your family is basically what it means. So yeah, and that's all new. That's all brand new because we've been so incredibly divided with our belief system. So unbelievably worked with it. Again, I think that'll break down. I think that's been very successful. If you look at some of the technology that Cambridge Analytica was using before it broke apart, and if you think it broke apart and went away, you're wrong. It went underground. So this technology of being able to control people has been here and has been getting successful. I do believe that is why part of the reason that we are where we are at this moment and what has happened with it. Like I said, I think it's all flexible. And as far as the democracy itself, there's problems with democracy. People, just because people choose the leader, are they the best people to be choosing a leader? Really, so there's all sorts of problems with the whole idea of
great in a tribe or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
they knows each other, and it's like, this guy should really be in charge.
Yeah, exactly. So the reality is it's very difficult to really apply a majority rules anyway. There's gaps and difficulties with that. I'm hoping we can come up with something in between. I'm hoping we can come up with something new. Wouldn't that be wonderful if we all could pitch in some ideas of safeguards and things we could put into things where we could have people be in a position of power and not abuse it?
Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe this is what's going to happen when this area of no secrets comes out.
I hope so.
And disclosure. I mean, really, because people have to wake up and start pushing back and get rid of the corruption. I mean, the systems aren't working. So
I hope so. I really do. I have good hopes for humanity. Yeah. I do. I do believe that down the road we're going to be doing fine, but we are moving. Yeah. We're moving so fast right now. It's hard.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Hard to keep our head above the water, So it's been fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to make any real course corrections when you're doing 300 miles an hour too.
That's true. That's true. The group says the only way we can do it is to hold hands. And
there we go.
And that's hard. Even that's hard. But yes, that's the idea. Yeah.
Well, Steve, this has been great. We appreciate you coming. I'm not sure why it took 13 years to get you here, but we'll have to do it again before 13 more go by.
It's been an honor, guys. It's like you're part of the family. It's good to see you. Absolutely. And great work. I love your site.
Thanks. You too.
Thanks.
Where can people find your work?
People can find me at steverother.org. That is STEVEROTHER.org. We're a nonprofit, so we're a .org. Awesome. And you can find us there. There's all kinds of fun things you can sign up for.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good day. Come back anytime.
We will. We'll see you again. Take care.
And that was a chat with Steve Rother, the 12 soul lessons we all came here to master. It seems crazy we did the show song and didn't cross paths with this guy yet.
Yeah.
I think it was Gail Tor that hooked us up, one of the publicists through Interdimensional. So thanks to her. But yeah, man, we keep finding people that it's like, how could we exist in the same ecosystems and not bump into each other? But maybe it is all starting to come together. We'll see. Big thanks to Steve for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening. Even bigger thanks if you're one of the few who choose to support us and keep us going over at grimerica.ca/support. Sign up for a monthly or make a one-time donation today if you're getting some value from the 730 episodes almost out there. And if you're not, then I don't know what you're still doing here. But if you are, support us. That's the only way we get support. You can also support us by getting our audiobooks at adultbrain.ca, checking out our other podcast, grimericaoutlaw.ca, contact@thecabin.com for trips and events, going to the Azores to look for Atlantis with Randall Carlson right away. If you want to get in on that, that'd be fun. Did I already do the audiobooks? Adultbrain.ca.
Yeah, you did the audiobooks.
GrimericaCBD.com for gummies and tinctures. Not enough people picking that stuff up, so grab some. Check it out. That's all from True Hemp Science. And I think that's about it for this week. You get some tallow. That supports us too. Big Sky Tallow.ca. My wife makes it, so it's all good to go. Other than that, we love you guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.